Alright, so this is my audience, and now they're going to have a seat. Alright, thank you guys for being here. Today I'm going to talk to you guys. It is my job to convince you all that we need to be thinking about the future in terms of our economics when we're dealing with societal issues. And you guys may not be aware that there are a bunch of statistics and estimations out there about job automation. And they range from the conservative and optimistic of no jobs being replaced at all to the stark and scary of 30% of all jobs in the US being automated by the year 2030. And as you can see, a bunch of jobs at risk for automation are low-skilled workers, the youth, elderly, the sales clerks, food preparation assistants, mining laborers, cleaners, and helpers. And another fear that people have is that job automation is creeping into the more skilled and technical aspects of jobs. And you may be wondering why I bring this up and how this ties into our economic future. And it's really important to realize that as job automation comes along, it takes away jobs for people. And if we need people to survive, if we need people to participate in jobs to make money to survive and get by in life, and we don't have those jobs available, then we have ourselves a problem. But the solution to this problem that I'm proposing is something called basic income. And so today we're going to go over what basic income is and entails. We're going to go over a few of the concerns that people bring up as soon as they hear those two words. And finally, we're going to go over a little bit of experimentation and the benefits of a system like this. So, basic income is exactly what it sounds like. This is a free income that comes to people who fall under the poverty line, and this is essentially a right to live. So if you are below poverty, you are paid a stipend by the government that matches the difference of the income that you're at and the poverty line. And this is not a new concept that's created by millennials who don't want to work and think they should get everything. This has actually been brought up and thought of and experimented with and researched for decades. So again, the basic concept of this income is that it is enough money to cover food, shelter, and education. And that's not to say all education, but something to put towards education. Another important part of this program, of a system like this, is that these payments would be made in checks and not vouchers, so that you're getting around a bunch of the government programs and the problems that we have with voucher systems right now, which is brought up in a later concern that we'll get to right after we answer the first biggest question that everybody thinks of when they hear basic income. Everyone says, where does the money come from? And again, we go back to this negative tax income. And an important part of this is, again, when you fall below the poverty line, you are paid by the government the difference that matches up to the poverty line. For everybody else, the way that they see this income tax, everybody fears that they're going to have a tax increase. But your regular middle class, upper class, they don't see any differences in terms of the taxes they're paying. It's a flat tax sort of system, negative income tax for people within poverty. And this idea has been supported by many Nobel Prize economists, which is a really big deal. It's not just something, again, this is not just something that people of this generation came up with to help deal with problems. This is something that's been going through history for a long time. Another way that another way to fund for this sort of system is by consolidating the bloated government social programs. And that's a big deal because if you implemented a basic income, you're going to have a lot of overlapping things. And you want to get rid of all those overlapping things and umbrella them, bring them into one system, which is a basic income that covers, again, the gamut of housing, food, and education. So a big part of this is The statistic from the OECD, also known as the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, as of 2013, they have estimated that the U.S. spends $1.6 trillion of it on social expenditures. That is about 10% of its GDP, or essentially our economic performance. The next concern that people have, I don't want to spend their money. I don't want these people to spend their money on things that aren't anything, things that aren't housing, food, and education. And really, that's not your place to say what people spend their money on. The big part of this is that you're not gatekeeping or telling people how to spend their money. If people have specific needs with this money, we'll say dietary needs, then they don't have to get a voucher for milk if they have a lactose intolerance or something of that nature. You're also going to give people, because it's cash and not vouchers, you're going to empower these people to make their own decisions for what they need versus the self-appointed experts who tell people what they think they need, when in reality, you as the person struggling or you as the person receiving the stipend typically knows what you need to get by and survive. Another question, another concern that's brought up all the time. What if people don't want to work? And the working people ask those questions. And really, what this comes down to is, again, not telling people how to live their lives. If somebody says that they can live their life off of a basic income that covers their housing, their food, and their education, and that's all they want to do, what is so wrong with that? But more importantly, the biggest benefit of this is, if somebody doesn't want to work, and they go to this system where they're just, supported by the government and just exist and are happy with that, then they free up the job that they were at. So now that job is free, and anybody who wants to work and make more income has the option to do that. And these benefits far outweigh the negative concerns that people have built up in their heads. So next we're going to talk about a little bit of experimentation. And this experiment happened in about 1974 in a Canadian town called Dauphin, and it went on for almost 5 years. And the aim of their experimentation was to test it if a guaranteed tax-free income would improve the health and community life. And this data was found 20 years later, after the experiment had shut down due to lack of interest and also funding that ran out. And what they found with this data was that during the time in which people were on a basic income, a tax-free income, school performance increased, hospitalization rates decreased by 8.5%, mental health complaints and domestic violence rates also decreased. And another surprising statistic was that the minority of people who didn't work were pregnant mothers as well as students, and those students ended up staying in school for longer. So the results are great for basic income. And I'm so glad that I had the time and the opportunity to tell you all the basics of basic income, what the main concerns are of people, and how we can answer those questions and give different perspectives to some of those questions and concerns, as well as a little bit of experimentation and the perceived benefits of a program and a system like this. And I think it's really important that we think of the future and how this is going to affect our social and economic prowess so that we can prepare for automation rather than react to it. And thank you. And if you guys will come up and step out in front of my audience, step out in front of the camera again. 1, 2, 3, great. Cool, thank you.